Hey guys, it's Jeet. In this video, I'm going to explain everything you need to know about link records in Airtable. I have two sample tables set up here, employees and projects, and before we start going to the fun stuff of clicking buttons and showing how the link records work, I want to explain a little bit more about why we use link records in the first place. I know it's not as much fun, but you only need to understand this once, and you don't have to watch any more YouTube videos on this concept. So let's get started. So at its core, we have employees on one side and projects on the other, right? So this really applies to any concept, but employees and projects is a pretty high level business concept that most people understand. So let's say we have employee 1, employee 2, and employee 3, and let's say we have project 1, project 2, and project 3. The reason we use link record is because we want to link an employee to a project, right? Like in a business, an employee 1 could be working on project 2, employee 2 could be working on project 3, employee 3 could be working on project 1. We want to connect two things together, right? Hence the name link records. That is why we use it, right? Employees and projects are two different tables and we want to link them together. I know it's really self-explanatory, but you're going to notice, especially as things start to add up, as your projects start to get more complex, you actually need to think through things and see how different objects, different tables link together, right? So for example, over here, it's very simple. It's a one-to-one relationship, one employee, one project. But in the real world, an employee could be working on multiple projects, right? So this is called a one-to-many relationship. So one employee works on project 2 and employee 1 also works on project 1, right? So now an employee is working on multiple projects at the same time. So creating and keeping track of these linked things instead of having one big table, like let's just say this is table and we have employee 1 here, employee 2 here, and employee 3 here. What we would have to do instead, if link records was not a thing, is we have to see employee 1 is working on P1, so I would have to have P1 here. And then employee 1 also is working on project 2, so like another field here would be project 2. And then employee 2 is working on project 3. As you can see, it's already pretty confusing, right? And employee 3 is working on project 1. So we have to have separate fields for each employee. So like the field name would be like employee, it would be project 1, like working on project 1, working on project 2, working on project 3. It doesn't, like, you have to add a field for every single project that an employee is working on, right? So maybe there's a finite number of fields. You see how it's already getting pretty confusing, right? And keep in mind, this is a very simple use case, right? Let's add something a little more complex, such as how much money is being spent on each project from an employee side and a project side as well, right? So that would mean we have to add like a separate column that says, project 1 price and project 2 price, right? Instead of just having a one price column here and just stating the prices, right? You see the difference there? Like I would have to, it's very manual, and it's a general rule of thumb. If you have a long table that has a lot of fields and it's really messy and it feels like you have to add like 1, 2, 3, like employee 1, employee 2, employee 3 as like a field name itself, that typically means you want to separate it into a different database and create a link record. So hopefully this is making sense here. Now let's get straight into Airtable and show you how this is done. So over here we have employees and we have projects. Let's just start off with employees. It doesn't really matter where you create the link record from, but I'm going to call this link to projects. Make sure to name this properly because as you add more and more fields, it's going to get very confusing, especially when you have multiple links to multiple tables. And in the field type, I want to say link to another record, and it's going to be projects. So you're going to notice allow linking to multiple records. I'm going to come back to that, but I'm just going to click create field here. And what I'm going to get, I don't know why it's taking so long, and I'm going to go over lookup fields too in a bit. I'm going to see a tab here, and also in projects, I'm also going to see a new tab here that's employees. I'm going to rename this actually to link to employees so that we know, right? And so now going back to the same example here, employee 1 is working on project 1. So I'm going to click the plus sign here. And I guess projects, I don't have these by name, right? Maybe we can just make this P1, P2, and P3, right? So going back to employees, employee 1 here is working on project 1. Employee 1 is also working on project 2. So now I'm adding project 2 here. You see how this works? Now we're adding the links together. And it's like now the employee is connected to the projects and the projects are also connected to the employees. So you can see for P1 here, I can clearly see that employee 1 is working on this. And now it's very clearly laid out, right? For link to projects, employee 1 here, Jane, is working on project 1 or project 2. And at the same time, in the projects table, fix this, link to employees, we can see that project 1 is being worked on by Jane and project 2 is also being worked on by Jane. Let's finish this example here. So employee 2 is working on project 3. So Marcus is working on project 3. So I can see all the records from over here in this link to projects, right? Because my goal here is to link the correct project among all projects, which one links to Marcus. So I'm gonna pick project 3, and then employee 3 is working on project 1. So put this here. And I mean, that's really all there is to it, right? Like in the project side, you can see that Jane and Marvin are working on project 1. Jane is working on project 2, and Marcus is working on project 3. So in terms of adding the complexity, the example I was talking about with like a bigger table here, let's say I want to see the salary that's being spent per project, like as a super cookie cutter example in business, right? Let's say I add a salary tab. I want to make this number. Actually, we need a currency tab. So select preset, dollars is good. And let's say Jane gets paid $120,000, Marcus gets paid $180,000, and Marvin gets paid like $50,000, right? So in the projects tab, let's see, if I want to see which projects, like how much money is being sent per project, this is where the lookup field comes into play. So I can click this drop down here and add a lookup field, and I can pick which field from my employees I want to show on the project side, right? That's all lookup is. So for Jane, if I want to see how much is she being paid based on the employees table, I'm just gonna add this here, add lookup field. I'm gonna say salary, add on field, and you can see this pulls it up from here, right? $120,000 is being spent for project 2. These are two different items, $120,000 and $50,000, right? And the reason why is because it's pulling it on a record basis. We can sum this up using a roll-up field. That's a separate video. I want to keep this on link records for now here, but I can see $70,000 being spent for project 1 and $180,000 is being spent for project 3, right? So now I don't have to go to multiple places and, like the traditional way, I would have to kind of manually update here. This is Jane. She's getting paid $120,000. And this is, I don't know, the second person, they're getting paid. Like this is all being nicely put in one place, right? I hope that's making sense for you. So that's really all there is to link records. And the final thing I want to go over is multiple records. So in this example here, I had this to on, allow linking to multiple records. But let's just say, for example, for every project, only one person can work on it. I'm going to turn this off. And yes, any change you make to one side goes on the other side as well. So I actually don't know why this is here. You're going to notice I can only have one person or one project per employee, right? So if I exit this out and I pick 1, I can't add any more. The reason why there was more initially is because I had it preset before. It might be a bug, might be how Airtable likes to do things, right? But a one-to-one says that for every employee, there can only be one project if like your use case requires that, right? And on the other hand, allow linking to multiple records. If I click edit field here, that means confirm changes, I can add multiple projects per person, right? So that's how all this comes together. So that's really all there is to link records. If you guys have any questions, comment down below, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And thanks for watching. Bye.